Hello everybody, welcome to Bluebell Hill Crafts. Thank you very much for tuning in again. I've got this little stitch project on the go and I didn't really mean to make a video with it, but I've enjoyed the process so much I thought I'd jump in and share this with you. This is going to be a slow stitched needle book, and let me just tell you what I've done up until now. I started off with a offcut of wadding or batting, and mine measures about 9.5 by 5.25, but I will straighten this up a little bit later. But totally up to you what dimensions you would like. I actually used fusible wadding to start with and then added another layer of regular wadding, but this can be a little bit hard on the wrist for stitching because it's harder to get your needle through there. So if that is a concern for you, then just stick to a normal, just one layer of normal wadding, or you can double this up as well. I used some offcuts from my Improv Curves quilt and literally just laid scraps and overlap them slightly. So just arrange them and cover the whole surface area until you're happy with the look. When I'm not using fusible wadding, I love using these little applique pins. They're tiny, but they keep everything in place. Let me just show you without getting in the way. So they really are super handy. I forgot to mention this fabric glue stick earlier. It is washable and it holds your fabric scraps in place just temporarily. So if you didn't want to use pins or fusible wadding, then you can just use this and add a few little dabs, and that will help you keep things in place while you stitch. I then picked a point and started stitching in the round, and I used these Aurifil number 12 threads, straight stitches, and then I went on to use a blanket stitch, and here some straight stitches but going in different directions from the spiral. And I just, if you can see here, varied the length and also the angle a little bit to make them look random and a little bit more scattered. I've added a few stars and also some French knots. I've had some questions on the blanket stitch spiral over on Instagram, and I promised to include just a little section in this video on how to start, because I think that seems to be the issue that most people have. So new thread, and then I'm just placing it inside here, but if you're starting from fresh, just pick a spot that you want to be the center of the spiral, and then I pin the thread with my finger, go back close to where I came up and over the thread. And that's your beginning. If you're going round, you can then, as the last stitch, pick this up to widen it a little bit. So you just carry on from the top and then coming up inside the thread. And if you want to add some creativity to it, you can vary the stitch height and add a few tall slim ones, for example. and also the width to make these spaces in between bigger. And I think you just achieve a really lovely organic look. And if you want to finish a thread, so you've come up here and then you want to put the needle in the other side of this thread. So you're locking it in place basically. So there you go. And then add a couple of knots at the back. And you can also tuck down any loose ends or edges with this stitch. And I really don't think too much about the placement of these stitches, because if I overthink it, it doesn't look as nice and free-flowing and organic, and that's the sort of aesthetic that I'm going for. I have finished the stitching. I'll just show you the back. And the next step is to give this a little press, just to set the stitches and to straighten up the edges. All straightened up. And I have cut a piece of fabric for the backing. And I've cut this a good 1/8 of an inch shorter, so I can stretch it a little bit in place, because when we're folding this over, naturally there will be excess fabric in the middle, and it's just going to reduce the bulk a little bit. Clip in place. I'm going to start in the corner down here, and I will bury the knot in the layers near the edge. So you're starting having this catch the first loop, and if you're left-handed, then you would be stitching the other way, you know, going from right to left. And coming to the corner, I'm going to go into the same hole here, and again here. And if you want to make sure that you have the same length for all the different stitches, you can pre-mark a line if you want, maybe using a heat erasable marker, but I am not too worried because I've got so much sort of free-flowing stitching and sort of organic vibes going on. It doesn't really matter if these are a little bit uneven. I've come to the end of my thread and I just want to show you how to secure this and start another one. So this is the position after the last stitch. Now I'm going over that stitch and back into it and then tie it off just to secure it in place. And I'm going into the wadding on the back and make a few little stitches and add a little knot. To start my new thread, I'm going to do the same thing in reverse. I'm going to bury the knot in the back and then I am coming out, not here, but inside the last vertical stitch so that I can pull it over into shape. And then you are back where you were left with your last stitch. And this is parallel and it hasn't sort of tilted either way because we've anchored it. I've stitched all the way around and I just wanted to show you how to finish off. You can see how the first stitch is a little bit slanted, and what I'm going to do is with this thread I'm just going to pick this up and then I can pull it over and add a tiny stitch just to anchor this in place. And then I'm just completing the stitch on the back, come out at the next one, add a little loop, not all the way down, but almost. Go in right next to the stitch, travel inside, and then I'm going to pull the knot in, and you can hear and feel a little pop when it's gone. Now we're ready to add the pages to our needlebook. A really popular material is felt, but what I'm going to use is this really special Harris tweed. I was given this for my birthday a while ago and I've just really wanted to save it for something, and the colour match was just too good not to use it. The Harris tweed, you can see on here, is actually hand woven cloth with 100% new wool in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. So really special. And I will cut them just a little bit smaller than the size of the needlebook, with a gap of about 1/4 inch on all sides. I'm going to mark the middle with a couple of pins. Having found the middle, I'm just going to clip just the inner pages in place. Because these are so bulky and it was a bit of a challenge to stitch and find the middle, I've decided to just tack them into place just with some big basting stitches, and then I will stitch either side, but at least I know this is the middle. The basting stitches are in place, and it's always good to use a contrasting colour so you can see them. And this time I'm going to add the clips through all layers. And instead of doing a normal running stitch, I'm actually going back into the hole from the last stitch to create a stronger spine. What you can do actually to mark a straight line is to take a thread and pin it at both sides where the middle is, and then you can use that as a guide to stitch along. This is what the spine looks like at the moment with just one row of stitches, but I thought I will add another row either side in different colours, just to make the spine a little bit wider and also just to add a little bit of interest. To start the new thread, I've made a little knot and we'll bury it just like before and come out at the top of the spine. Sometimes you have to wiggle it a little bit for it to pop through. There we go. And then I'm going to anchor it just in the bottom layer. And travel inside to where I want to come out. If you wanted to, you could also embellish the spine by adding a few beads. I just finished the third row, and you can see how that has created a nice spine and a little bit of space for all the needles to go on the inside. Now the stitches here look like something from the Wild West. I personally don't mind that, true to the motto of this little needle book. But if you feel like tidying this up a little bit, you could top stitch a piece of ribbon, for example, over it, or a little bit of bias binding, just to slip stitch it and cover up these stitches. I'm not going to travel with this. I think this will be at my main sewing machine. I don't need a closure on it, but if you wanted to, just as a final thought, you could top stitch a piece of ribbon on the back and have it here to tie. But I quite like this as it is, and I look forward to filling it up with my favourite needles. And this is it. I'm really pleased with how it's come out, and I've certainly enjoyed the relaxing stitching, and I'll be bringing you a lot more hand stitching and slow stitching in the near future. Thank you very much for spending your time with me, and I hope you enjoyed this project, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.